Before coffee even gets to us, it has been on a significant journey, but how much of that journey affects the taste and flavour profile? Well, most will argue that the roasting process is the most significant thing, and that's something we're going to look at in detail in this video. But we'll step back for a minute, think about where your coffee has come from and what it goes through to become this lovely drink that we enjoy every morning. When we buy coffee, we tend to buy pre-ground, pre-roasted coffee. Initially, coffee is essentially a cherry growing on a shrub. And that cherry is picked, and then the coffee bean itself is then extracted from the cherry. Initially, it would look very, very green like that. So you've got green coffee beans, and it's only when they're roasted that you start to get that lovely aroma, the lovely colour coming out of it. But the degree of roast has a significant impact on the overall taste of the coffee. The more you roast the coffee, the less its flavour profile, but you get a much stronger coffee out of it. The Italian roast or the French roast is typically the darkest. So when we roast coffee, we typically talk about the bean temperature. Initially, when the bean itself gets up to about 190 degrees centigrade, we have what's called the first crack. So it's literally a cracking noise that happens in the bean as it heats up. As the temperature of the bean raises to 225 degrees centigrade, you get a second crack. At that first crack, we could say that the flavour profile, if you were to grind it and brew a coffee, would be mild and complex. At the second crack, we're looking at smooth and mild. Now, as we go past the second crack, the bean temperature will typically go through 240 degrees centigrade, and you start to get bitterness coming out of the coffee then. So some people would say this is a bitter-sweet note. At 245 degrees, we're now talking about very strong, very bitter coffee. So these strong coffees have a very smoky, very strong aftertaste. A lot of coffee chains prefer these darker Italian and French roasts over the conventional ones. But most coffee connoisseurs prefer much milder roasts because you get more complexity in terms of flavour out of each of the beans. It's very easy to go past the second crack and actually burn the bean. Now, interestingly, the more you roast the bean, the less caffeine there is in it. A dark roast typically requires around about a 14-minute roast time, whereas the light roast is about 7 to 8 minutes. And then your typical medium roast is somewhere between 9 and 11 minutes. It depends very much on where the bean has come from, how old the bean is after it has been picked, and what you intend to make with the coffee that determines how it should be roasted. If you're starting out, you can actually buy little kits that are quite useful. They've got all the green beans in from a variety of different sources. And they've got a little dechafer as well. So after the beans have roasted, you'll put them in this dechafer, and it just takes off all the little husks and the impurities that are on the outside of the coffee. And it's a great way really to experiment, to find your perfect bean origin and your perfect bean roast. Coffee is very much like wine. It depends very much where it's been grown, the type of environment it has been grown in, the location, the condition of the soil. These all have a very distinctive contribution to the flavour of the coffee itself. And real coffee connoisseurs can actually tell to a certain degree of accuracy which region. Now, one of the most popular coffee regions is probably one of the most complex. So we've got Brazil, but there's a whole series of microclimates in Brazil. So different farms in fairly similar locations have got very different soil types or very different exposure to water or other conditions that benefit the growing of the coffee bean. So it has a big bearing on the coffee itself that comes out at the end. The two core aspects that control the roast is the duration and the temperature. So you can roast beans for a long time at a low temperature, or you can roast them for a very short time at a high temperature, and you'll get very different results to doing maybe a long roast at a medium temperature. Usually the lighter roast will preserve more of the unique character of the coffee where it's been grown, whereas the darker roasts tend to unify the coffee. You get a much similar taste profile. I hope this has just opened your eyes really to the possibility of roasts. I would encourage you to buy a little kit and just play around with different roasts yourself. It's a great way of experimenting. Often when you buy green beans, you have to buy a big sack, and committing to a large sack from an origin that you're unsure about is certainly quite an investment and a risk to a lot of people. So it's better to invest in just a kit that gives you the variety, and then from that you can start to develop your taste preferences and what sort of coffee you actually like. So please boot that like button, because that really does help us to get out there. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned to the channel, because we would hate you to miss out on what we've got brewing in terms of great coffee content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in this next video that I've lined up.